Hello, my name is Yaryna Shumska. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present my research here in the conference in Quebec. About a few words about this text. I collaborated during the last year with Gleb Wyszyslawski. He's Ukrainian art critic, and he lives in Kiev, in the central part of Ukraine, and we decided to collaborate on this article about performance art in Ukraine during the last 20 years. We decided to work together because we wanted to make the full information about performance art from 1998 till now, and I worked more with the information about Ukrainian artists who are on the western part of Ukraine, because I live in Lviv. It's not far from the Polish border. And Gleb, he worked more on the information about artists from the central and eastern part of Ukraine. Talking about performance in Ukraine, actually the year 1998 we can describe as a third wave of performance in Ukraine, because at first at the beginning of 20th century there were artists who worked with some kind of body art, because the Ukrainian futurists, and they put paint on their faces, the colors of their faces, and that was kind of express themselves. Also, in the middle of the 20th century, there was a period of perestroika and the Soviet times, and after that, when we talk about Ukraine as an independent country, that's the third part of the development of performance art in Ukraine. And when 5 years ago, when I started to work with this theme, with performance art, how did it live here in Ukraine, it seemed that nothing happened here before, but year by year it appeared more and more information, but usually it is in the memories of the artist, because during the period of the Soviet Union, the Soviet ideology worked in this way that they banned everything that was not totalitarian, that was not kind of communist idea. And all artists who worked in some other kinds, with some other kinds of art, they didn't show what are they doing. And for the moment, even now, we have a lack of documented facts and artistic events of that time. So slowly some documents from some photos from archives, they appear, and we can gather and put it together for the moment. Talking about last 20 years, it's good to say that we have some few main cities. This is Lviv, Kyiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kharkiv, Uzhgorod. All of them are situated in different parts of Ukraine, but they are the bright centers of performance art in Ukraine for the moment. Talking about Kyiv, there lived a very special man an artist, Fadir Tecanic. He had a nickname, and he is known also as a Fripulja. And his first performance was, the date was 1979, and he actually, describing his art, he was all his actions, every day of his life, it was a kind of performance. He really lived with that. He was wearing very special clothes, was made of garbage, using foil tins, some colorful and sparkling materials, and he appeared in a Soviet country where everything was of kind of gray, and he was such a bright person, and for sure that was a shock for everyone. After talking about Lviv, it's the western part of Ukraine. It's worth to mention Volodymyr Kaufman. He's a Ukrainian artist, and he, in the times of 80s, he presented performances usually to his friends in his studio, and they had really like private festivals, private special events, and he called his actions videvo. It means something that we can see, something to be seen, and he combined these actions with painting, with installations, and also he invited musicians, his friends, musicians, to play during these actions, and but that was in the period of the 80s. Afterwards, the first officially announced performance in Ukraine was the transformation of the flag of the Soviet Ukraine into the flag of Ukraine, and it was in 1990. After that, Kaufman worked really actively in the territory of Ukraine. After 2000, he started to go abroad. Usually it was Poland, to participate in the festivals, because in Ukraine there were not any performance art festival for that moment. And in total, the list of Kaufman's performances includes approximately 100 works, or for today it's even more. And his trips to the festivals also gave a lot of energy to initiate something here in Lviv. And also in 1998, Antonina Denisyuk, she organized the festival called De Novo, and also performances were presented there, but they were not very common for that moment. Between the artists from Lviv, there is also Vasil Bajai. He's a painter, abstractionist, and he also worked with performance art, and he said that his first performance, but it was not called performance, but it appeared in 1976 when he worked as an artist in the theater, and all the staff prepared for the theater performance. He decided to use it only once, and they ordered a lot of mirrors, and it was his idea to make a labyrinth of these mirrors. And thanks to the openness of the theater director, they made this actually performance with the actors who participated in it, but Vasil Bajai, finally he broke all these mirrors, and it was a kind of going out from this special structure where everybody were living in that time. One more artist from Lviv was Yuri Sokolov, and he presented performances in the festivals of the 90s. After that, he worked a bit with performance during the last 10 years, but this practice never had a leading place for his activities. He worked more with objects, with installations. Gleb Wyszysławski, as I said, he's an art critic, but he is also an artist, and in the 80s he worked a lot with actionism, and in 2006 he started to collaborate in a group, Kontrabanda, with his friends from the city Czernivtsi, Albina Alyabina and Volodymyr Yakovets. And the group's projects are based on the social provocative topics, and usually about they are talking about some problems, but with the language of art. In 1991, and during the 15 years after that, in Lviv also existed the Mazoch Foundation, and it had 3 members: Ihor Podolchak, Ihor Duric, and Roman Viktyuk. Kyiv artist Anatoly Fedirko, he started to work a little bit after, but the end of 90s was very active period for him, and it's his work. We have very known work made by him. It's also performance, but collective performance, called Last Supper 2000. It was presented in 1999, and it was a joke actually, because the author selected 40 people who represented the Ukrainian elite, and as he said, this is a performance during which the iconostasis is solved by the simple voting, and that was similarly as decision making in Verkhovna Rada, in the Ukrainian parliament. So it was a kind of joke, and this play was this selected person who sometimes appear in the parliament just suddenly, and nobody knows how. A very interesting person is Volodymyr Bachtov. He's an artist from Mykolaiv. It's the city which is situated on the south of Ukraine. And he proposed the term heliograffiti. It's the fire drawing in a space. So usually his performances are like invisible, because he uses a torch, a natural light, and he makes some drawings in a space, but we can see the result only on the photo documentation. In 2000, in the beginning of the 21st century, appeared a group, Tanz Laboratorium. The head of this group is Larissa Venediktova, and they started to work first with a movement of the body, was some dance gestures, but for the moment they are more oriented to the social problems and work a lot outside in the city. The second generation of Ukrainian artists, they appeared with the new century, and these were young artists, those who are now from 30 to 40 years old. So these are Miroslav Vajda, Volodymyr Topy, also the groups RiAP from Kiev, and the second one is Soska. It's like SOS, but also it's a play of words and letters from Kharkiv. And they work a lot with social political situation. They try to talk about that, also the military political exacerbation in certain areas of Ukraine gives them more ideas to work, and thinking about, for example, Orange Revolution in 2004. It took place in Kiev, and it gave a lot of possibilities to the artists to collaborate with the simple people, and there a lot of ideas were realized. For example, the people who were writing a long letter to the Russian embassy. It was 80 meters long letter on the orange tissue, and every person could write some message for that, and finally this tissue was given to the embassy. Also, no, actually, this Orange Revolution, this color, it had intensive meaning for all of Ukrainians, and this color provoked a lot of ideas in the ambience of artists, also with the simple people. For example, Alexander Volodarsky's action near the Verkhovna Rada in 2009 became public and known due to the form of the naked body and manifestations of sexuality, and also the political context. And after that, he spent few months in a jail. Also, Aleftina Kakhidze, she's very known Ukrainian artist. She's natively from Donetsk, from the region where is the war now, and now she lives in Kiev. And she works with the themes of consumerism, with marginalization, also identity research, and gender issues. And once she made a performance called I'm Late for an Airplane for which is impossible to be late, and one of Ukrainian millionaires or even milliardaires, he borrowed his own aircraft, and it was for an art action, but finally she just went up and finally down, so landed, and that was all. And for him it was something crazy, that what, so where was the real art? And Aleftina, she's interested exactly by this tiny context. She's even, let's say, in some way the conceptualist. Actually, she works more with these concepts and these double meanings. Volodymyr Topy, he's the artist from Lviv, and he made a series of performances with the soldiers, with a small green man, but these soldiers were toys, and he presented these performances in Ukraine and in Poland, and even these small toys, they work very powerful on the mind when you can see what is he doing, and to have some other things, and it's the new context appears during that. One more Donetsk artist, Petro Armenovsky, performed once in Kiev, going on the knees from the metro station. It's a very big metro point, to the Kyivo-Pecherska Lavra. It's a church, and this 1.5 kilometers took him 8 hours long, and a lot of people, even the policemen, they could not understand what happens, why is he going on the knees, and even the law officers considered him crazy. But usually he works with this public uncomfortable situations, and these conversations are between the passerbys and him are important in his art. Also in Kharkiv, in that time, in the beginning of the 20th century, appeared Boba group, and this is finally a family, the man and the wife and the husband who work together, and even their small child is a part of their performances, which are also usually public. And Yulia Drozdek, she appeared a lot of times naked in a public transport. She had some different writings on her body, and this is interesting to see the reaction of the people who are standing near, because some of them tried to be very calm, like nothing has happened, and others started to discuss, to cry, to be different. What is important also is that Polish artist Yuri Onuch in 2006 initiated the festival Days of Performance Art in Kyiv. And this is very important year because in Kyiv this festival didn't work good, but is Volodymyr Kaufman, I've talked about him at the beginning, he was one of the participants, and he was Yuri Onuch. They decided to organize this festival in Lviv. In that time, Yuri Onuch, he worked as the director of the